Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. We start immediately. Good afternoon. I'm Anna Fotyga, Polish member of the European Parliament, and on behalf of my political group and in cooperation with the outstanding Ukrainian activists and artists, as well as American and Polish contributors, I have the pleasure to open this seminar. I welcome all distinguished guests, my colleagues, members of the European Parliament. I see Margarita de la Pisa of Spain. Thank you for coming. I would like to warmly welcome His Excellency Vsevolod CHENTSOV, head of the mission of Ukraine, ambassador, head of the mission of Ukraine to the EU, our frequent guests and interlocutor, naturally, because Ukraine is constantly in our agenda. But today's topic is not so usual. We want to speak about culture versus war, or culture as a mean of aggression, and on the other hand, as a tool of resistance of victims. It is to commemorate the second anniversary of full-scale invasion, to remember this time, although here in the European Parliament and actually in all collective West, we remember about this and try to keep it really high in the agenda, hoping that all combined efforts are to ensure Ukraine's victory in combating this aggression, and that we repeat also constantly the defeat of Russia. We know this. Culture is a special tool, and when I try to reflect on the role of culture in building entity of nation, but also of a person, individuals. It is enormous role, and probably even higher role during time of war. Actually, cultural resistance is a kind of DNA or national DNA of many of my compatriots, and being recipients of culture, we remember that highest ranking pieces of literature, music, painting, sculpture were always somehow linked also to very difficult, painful emotions. And in my case, it was kind of formation, education, simply benefiting from fantastic literature, including poetry of Polish Romanticism under partitions, then later on also during First and Second World War, also during communism, artists used to create their masterpieces in an enormously difficult time. Same happens in Ukraine, amazingly, in contemporary Ukraine, art starts to flourish. We had also here in the European Parliament some time ago exhibition portraying Ukrainian, Belarusian and Georgian art under a common title, Spirit of Freedom, because this spirit of freedom is always there. My interlocutors are going to portray methods used by Russian Federation, in my memory also earlier by the Soviet Union, in order to subordinate, to subjugate nations. But it is particularly visible now during time of war, of full-scale aggression. I would like to give the floor to His Excellency Ambassador now. Sorry.
Thank you very much, dear Minister Fotyga. And first of all, I wanted to thank you and your group, ECR, for organizing this event, but also for constant support of Ukraine since the beginning of this terrible war, but even before it started. So you're strong partners and allies, and we are fighting together for liberation of Ukraine. And we are talking not about the territorial integrity. It's much deeper and broader, and definitely it's about our cultural heritage. When we are talking about the role of culture and culture versus war, so it's multidimensional, because on one hand, our cultural heritage is a target for the Russian aggressors, and it's one of the areas they want to erase, they want to annihilate the whole idea of Ukraine being Ukrainian. It's a feature of Russian genocide against Ukrainian people, and they don't hide it. They destroy the textbooks, they destroyed objects of art. For me, quite a striking example of this attitude was the monument to Taras Shevchenko, which is not only the best-known Ukrainian poet, but also he is a symbol of Ukrainian spiritual liberation. And it was Borodyanka near Kiev during the first days of Russian invasion. And this monument was deliberately shot by the Russian soldiers as if it was a person. And this monument became famous around the country and also outside Ukraine. It's not only about the monuments, and it's about 900 and more objects of cultural heritage which have been destroyed so far by the Russians, and both of national significance, of local significance, new monuments, but also churches. And we are talking about the nation which pretends to be religious, guarding conservative values. This is a pattern of behavior of the Russian aggressors. But at the same time, Ukrainian culture and Ukrainian artists, they are fighting also on the front line, this cultural front line, speaking the language which is understood without words. It's about, photography. I understand that today we will have an opportunity to learn about famous Ukrainian photographers who document the war. It's also literature, it's poetry, and it's also something which help Ukrainians both on the battlefield but also in the cities under constant Russian attacks to remain human, to keep hope for victory and better future. So I mentioned that Russian behavior is a feature, is an element of the Russian aggression and Russian war crimes and genocide against Ukraine, and it's our aim and task to bring those responsible to justice. And we join forces here with European Parliament, with other European institutions and member states, creating a core group to establish a special tribunal for the crime of aggression. It's not an easy task, but we will keep fighting before we find the proper instrument to achieve our goal. And we are talking here about the leadership of the country, protected in the normal times by the international law. But we need to find a way to lift this protection and bring them to responsibility. It's about President, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister of Defense, so-called Troika, responsible for the crime of genocide, but not only, for the crime of aggression, but not only them, down the chain of command. It's also about compensation of damage that the Russian aggression caused to Ukraine, to Ukrainian people, but also to the cultural heritage. And even preliminary calculation say that it's already more than $9 billion we will need to recover and for recovery and reconstruction of destroyed and damaged Ukrainian cultural heritage. We need also to join forces to make sure that those stolen arts in Ukraine, they brought back to Ukraine, but currently they are not in circulation by international criminal groups which operate this illegal black market. And we are working both with UNESCO, with the World Customs Organization, with Europol and Interpol to make sure that those objects are returned to Ukraine safely. And definitely, when we are talking about compensation, we need to make sure that Russian state assets, which are currently frozen in both in the European Union but outside the Union, here we have a main volume of frozen assets. It's around 200 billion euros. They are confiscated and used for Ukraine reconstruction, including restoration of the cultural heritage. So I want once again to thank you for organizing this event, and to all participants, you found time to be with us today. Yes, we mark second anniversary of full-fledged Russian aggression, but it's also 10th anniversary of Russian war against Ukraine and also occupation of Crimea. So thank you for remembering, thank you for fighting with us, and we will win. Slava Ukraini!
Thank you very much indeed, Ambassador. Now I would like us to see the documentary on about Konstantin and Vera Liberov, a couple of photographers and filmmakers who documented atrocities and losses during this war by Russia on Ukraine.
Коли, наприклад, перший раз ти там бачиш свою світлину на сайті New York Times, думаєш, ого.
І вже потім, коли дивишся ці фотографії, думаєш, мабуть, щось не те я роблю зі своїм життям по життю.
Ну, це не про нас історія. Тобто ми люди з камерами, які розказують історії тих, хто справді цього гідний. Мене звуть Влада Ліброва. Мабуть, ти, краще, почни.
Давай там. Так, всім привіт. Мене звати Лібров Костянтин. Це моя кохана дружина Ліброва Влада. Ми подружжя фотографів.
Так, ми українські фотографи-документалісти, військові фотографи-документалісти.
Чим ми займалися до повномасштабного вторгнення?
Знімали лавсторі, тобто в основному це були історії кохання. Було дуже багато творчих проєктів, та й в принципі останній рік ми вже більше навчали, ніж знімали. Знімали на некомерційній основі якісь творчі проєкти для портфоліо, для душі, що називається, тому що ми завжди любили фотографію, сам процес, і це завжди було такою вагомою частиною життя. Тому з початком повномасштабного вторгнення, коли ми зрозуміли, що це наше комфортне життя, наша робота, воно від нас відходить все далі і далі.
Знімати лавсторі, знімати, як умовно люди цілуються, чи займатися навчанням по фотографії, комусь там розповідати про композицію, колір. Коли там умовно буквально там 100-200 кілометрів від тебе там гинуть люди, вмирають, там бомби літають. Ну, ти просто не знаходиш в собі ніяких моральних сил на це все. І ти вже починаєш думати, добре, у нас є фотографія. Ми от всією душою любимо фотографію, це, мабуть, єдине, що ми любимо у житті. І думаємо, а чим взагалі ми можемо зайнятися, щоб наша фотографія і далі жила.
Тобто все почалося з того, що ми з перших днів почали волонтерити в Одесі. В принципі, з цього все і почалося, з перших фотографій, які Костя випадково зробив на Одеському вокзалі. Теж ми туди приїхали там щось завезти, відвезти з гуманітарки, а Костя там залишився і познімав, як чоловіки прощаються з жінками, з дітьми, які їдуть. І вийшли
це був
такі
евакуаційний поїзд на захід України.
І вийшли такі досить емоційні кадри. Цей процес він захоплює, бо це справжня фотографія. Фотографія, якою вона була задумана. Тобто твоя задача як фотографа просто не втручатись і намагатись спіймати момент. І з цього все почалося. Ми зрозуміли, що те, в чому ми в принципі вважали себе непоганими, да? Тобто ми непогані фотографи, подумали, що це може бути далі корисно. І просто на осліп почали їздити без досвіду, спочатку навіть без захисту. У нас не було ані броніків, ані касок. Так, моя молодша сестра займається конним спортом, і перші наші поїздки вона їздила з нами, і в нас були конкурні каски. І в цих конкурних касках без бронежилету ми в Харкові потрапили під дуже жорстокий обстріл. Буквально стріляли по будівлі, в якій ми знаходились, і потрапляли в цю будівлю, в якій ми знаходились з міномета. І ти так лежиш собі, там перші хвилини думаєш, що я тут роблю.
Ти вже коли дивишся фото, навіть коли ти вже ці фото опублікував, ти на це дивишся і думаєш, ми там були, ми це знімали, з нами це відбувалося, і може десь там за якийсь час ти вже це прокручуєш в голові. А в момент зйомки емоції повністю йдуть на якийсь задній план, і ти просто розумієш, що тобі треба зробити це, тобі треба опинитися тут, тобі треба думати про композицію, про колір, думати, як воно все потім ще буде виглядати при публікації. Це все повністю займає Ну, весь твій мізок при зйомці. Мабуть, не мізок, мабуть, мозок.
Вы хотите знать про укропчика? Он только что покушал шаурму, а теперь едет в Изюм.
Це в нас російський ленд-ліз?
Да.
Ой, це я розумію, дякую.
Нарешті підходящий транспорт!
Костянтина, як тобі твої голубці?
Хочу сказати, що це вкусніше, ніж в одній з моєї бабусі.
Підтверджую, дуже-дуже смачно. І реально смачніше, ніж в однієї з твоїх бабусь.
Кепчик. Просто
Попробуй завести машину сначала. Кеп, молодець, все є. Да, людина взагалі так цікаво влаштована, що це приключення відбувається. Не кожного разу, але були моменти, коли ми приїжджали кудись, і ти відчуваєш, що це місце точно може і хоче тебе вбити. Після звільнення Ізюму була процес ексгумації людей, жертв, які постраждали під час окупації. Ми знімали цю ексгумацію. Для нас це було вперше. Взагалі вперше, насправді, ми в такій кількості бачили смерть, бачили вбитих людей. І ми були в масках, але там ніяка маска не допоможе. Цей запах смерті, це щось, знаєте, таке, що протирічить людській природі. Його ні з чим не можна порівняти, його неможливо описати, і ніяких слів не вистачить, щоб сказати, що це за запах. І я розумію, що я не можу ані в масці, ані без маски, немає різниці, я просто не можу дихати, тобто фізично не можу дихати. І мене відпустило в момент, коли я просто підняла камеру і почала знімати.
У мене, мабуть, були схожі емоції, коли ми бігли по тому мосту. Там був міст, десь метрів 400, він повністю прострілюється. Ми розуміємо, що над нами дрон, ми там біжимо, і тут починається обстріл, там раз міна падає, 2 міна падає, 3 міна падає.
Міна падає це там метрів 15.
Тобто взагалі.
Стріляють по нас і...
Ти не можеш там ні в укриття, це просто відкритий міст, який висить над річкою, який обстрілюється.
Ти його або перебіжиш, або не перебіжиш. Що, в принципі, я і зробила.
Було запитання про страх. Насправді, якби це дивно не звучало, в той момент ніякого страху не було, бо, там військові, там щось взривається, треба це знімати, і ти вже стоїш на тому мосту, там знімаєш там прильот від цієї міни, і вже потім, коли дивишся ці фотографії, думаєш, мабуть, щось не те я роблю зі своїм життям по життю.
Ты все написала, да?
Починали з того, що ми виставили собі дуже багато табу, одне з яких було те, що ми не хотіли ніколи знімати смерть і не хотіли ніколи знімати мертвих людей. А потім ми зрозуміли, що якщо ти називаєш себе документальним фотографом, то ти маєш документувати все, бо інакше це може навіть з ворожої сторони розглядатися як аргумент про те, що цього не було ніколи. Наприклад, саме в таку ситуацію ми потрапили, коли звільнили Ірпінь і Бучу. Костя там був, і він не знімав мертвих людей. І ці світлини потім взяли. Він знімав тільки живих людей і руйнування. І ми хотіли з самого початку, ми казали, що ми хочемо, щоб наша фотографія давала надію, тому ми відмовлялися це знімати.
Але зараз розуміємо, що це трохи неправильно і так робити все ж таки.
Так, бо з тієї сторони ці фотографії стали просто зіркою в пропагандистських медіа. Типу, ось був фотограф, волонтер, і він нічого не зняв, тобто цього не було. І потім нам дали таку хорошу пораду, яка звучить таким чином: знімай все. Завжди знімай все.
Час вже покаже.
А вже час покаже, потрібно і не потрібно це публікувати. Тобто, головне зняти. А що з цим далі робити, ну ти вже вирішуй сам. Наша задача, я вважаю, говорити правду, показувати правду. Правда, вона інколи буває болісною, вона може бути болісною. І я вважаю, що вона має бути такою. Якщо це якийсь травмуючий момент, то його і треба показати як щось травмуюче, таке, яким воно було.
А це така річ, пам'ятаю, це кладовище біля Бахмуту, і це заздалегідь вириті могили.
Це людина з російським громадянством, і російським паспортом, яка воює на боці України, за Україну. Це людина, яка зі зброєю не змогла мовчати, не змогла терпіти і пішла захищати країну. І це його побратими, це легіон називається «Вільна Росія». Вони всі тут росіяни, і вони всі тут воюють на боці України. Розкажіть, звідки ви?
Всі з Росії.
А як ви прийняли рішення воювати на стороні України? Ну, ми вам дуже вдячні за це, але...
Можна залишитися в стороні.
Ну, дуже багато ваших співвітчизників залишається, розумієте? Тому для нас це дуже важливо, що ви зараз тут зі зброєю в руках підтримуєте нас.
Ну, такой же долг. Хоть мы не громадяне, но Украина наш дом.
Дякую вам за це. Як вам лава ЗСУ?
Отлично.
Не ображаюсь?
Ні.
Ну що, друзі, разом до перемоги. Дякуємо вам. Все буде Україна.
Все буде Україна.
Це позиція 400 метрів від ворога.
Там дуже холодно, там, бачите, бутилка з водою, там лід всередині.
Так, воно дуже-дуже холодно. І це ще вважається як покращення умови, тому що в людей є бліндаж, в якому вони теоретично там можуть собі, ну, принаймні, я не знаю, там свічку окопну запалити, бо є нульові окопи, де бліндажів немає, і окопна
Там
свічка
окоп.
може вартувати тобі життя, бо вогник – це дим, ти показуєш, де ти знаходишся, і туди одразу ж починає навалювати артилерія дуже активно, дуже сильно.
Та артилерія чи снайпери.
Чи снайпери, так.
Там абсолютно повністю запаковані солдати, у яких тепловізори, все, абсолютно все, що для вбивства українців, в них є все.
Це українські діти грають у блокпост. Це щось типу колядування, насправді, такого несезонного, тому що вони запитують тебе гасло, ти кажеш гасло. Якщо в тебе є якісь солодощі, ти даєш їм якісь солодощі. Я посміхаюся, але ця фотографія насправді дуже сумна, тому що це не ті ігри, які мають грати діти.
Це, по суті, єдина розвага.
Діти, які живуть у щойно звільненому від окупації місті, вони, скоріш за все, вже бачили і смерть, і бачили руйнування, бачили війну. Немає ані зв'язку, ані нічого.
Магазини, нічого не працює, солодощів ніяких.
І це реально єдина їх розвага.
Так, хлопці, чим ви займаєтесь?
Мы останавливаем машину на посту.
І що робите?
Останавливаем машины, некоторые не останавливают.
Ага, добре. Щось зібрали?
Да.
Це добре. Все, ви класні. Бережіть себе, будь ласка, і не мочіть голову.
Укропчик знайшов себе, тепер він вовк да Вінчі. Нарешті він добрався до справжніх окопів.
Ми знімали чин поховання да Вінчі, і, скажу відверто, мені це було дуже тяжко знімати, бо, по-перше, я його знав, я знаю його дівчину, ми спілкуємося, і коли от на похоронах я розумію, що мені як фотографу треба, щоб там передати весь цей біль, щоб було зрозуміло, наскільки це всім болить і боляче, мені треба відзняти його дівчину Аліну, і мені було це дуже тяжко знімати.
Знаєте, це саме тому так болісно, тому що ти розумієш, що цього не могло трапитись. Ми всі, здається, не тільки переживаємо втрату, ми всі відчуваємо себе, знаєте, обманутими всесвітом. Типу.
Прямо в дворі ось жахнули.
А?
Прямо в дворі.
У двері жахнули?
Да, ось.
Там, де на річі, теж всі жили?
Медика. Куди йти треба? Ми були впевнені, що він виживе. Я на цьому похованні виплакала собі всі очі. І так, це дивно, тому що ти буквально плачеш і знімаєш, і це... За 3 дні до того, що трапилось, ми всі ці останні дні ми працювали з ним. І останні дні ми провели саме з ним. І в перший день, коли ми зустрілись, він просто взяв Костю з собою на штурм. Він посадив Костю на броню на танку, не всередині танку, а зверху. Вони сиділи на броню, і на цьому танку вони поїхали просто в
посадку, де позиції росіян, ось вони там 50 метрів, от ми по ним стріляємо з танку, ось я сиджу на танку, і це от, зараз я розповідаю, це, мабуть, здається якось дуже дивно, бо я все ж таки цивільна проста людина, але от коли ти знаходишся біля да Вінчі, тобі це кажеться, а що з тобою може статися, отут да Вінчі з тобою поряд сидить. Він
коли поїхав, я вже типу, боже, що я зробила? Я відпустила його на штурм. Я ж розумію, що я ж могла сказати, Костя, ні, це too much, це дуже великий ризик, а це реально дуже великий ризик, бо так, це дуже весело, коли ти зараз розказуєш, що ти на танку в'їхав у посадку, але танк це велика ціль, і його достатньо легко можна підстрелити, і це могло закінчитись дуже-дуже погано. І я розумію, що да Вінчі був єдина людина, з якою я могла би відпустити свого чоловіка на штурм. Більше ніколи ні з ким я цього, мабуть, не зможу зробити. В нього був трофейний танк, російський Т-90, їх найбільш крутий танк. І цей танк підстрелили, і він загорівся від обстрілу. ніхто не хотів його тушити, тому що танк з повним БК. Це дуже небезпечно. І
Він же горить.
Він же горить. І у Кості на очах там не тільки БК, а від кулемету почали...
Які на башні, вони вже почали спрацьовувати там крупнокаліберні набої.
І він буквально сказав дати йому води, і з бутилкою, з баклажкою він пішов тушити цей танк. У нас є фотографії, як він просто, як навіжений, тушить цей танк, він заліз на горящий танк і потушив його. І танк не зірвався, нічого з ним не трапилось.
Ніхто не підійшов до того танку, крім нього, бо це було трохи...
У нас є навіть світлина, де його побратим, він так, знаєте, за дерево виглядає, щось йому там машить, а він на танку тушить цей танк.
Ну, це, мабуть, найкраща характеристика, хто був такий да Вінчі.
Те, що він був великий воїн, всі знають. Він, окрім цього, був неймовірно хорошою людиною.
Це Влада робила цей кадр, дуже його люблю.
Я артилерію або не знімаю, або знімаю її дуже далеко від безпосередньо артилерії, тому що мене один раз справді контузило. Перший раз, коли ми знімали САУ радянську, я досить близько до неї підійшла. І мене тряхануло так, що в мене відлетіла каска, і я сама відлетіла, але це, типу, таке, ввечері мені було, прям дуже погано. Мені ніколи в житті не було так погано, як оце відчуття, нічим не порівняти. Тебе одночасно нудить, ти фізично не можеш зігрітись, це було влітку, це було тепло. Я була в одязі, на мені було 2 ковдри, і мене от трясили от таким ознобом просто, типу, ти не можеш зігрітись.
Щось в організмі збилось.
І тому зараз я артилерію знімаю тільки на дальнофокусний об'єктив, Костя мені дає, і це виходить така прикольна перспектива. Коли, наприклад, перший раз ти там бачиш свою світлину на сайті New York Times, ти думаєш, ого, прикольно, я на сайті New York Times. Це навіть не радість, це типу,
вау, як це?
Це виявилось якось навіть легше, ніж колись уявлялось. Зараз там кожного дня є якісь публікації в світових медіа, тому що на сьогоднішній день ми як фрілансери надаємо фотографії агенції Associated Press, вони беруть знімки, і через них ці знімки вже публікують великі медіа. Я розумію, що кращі свої знімки ми зняли зараз, за рік війни. Якби мені сказали, що мене ніколи не опублікує New York Times, я б з радістю погодилась. Бо це не ті знімки, які ти хочеш робити. Це таке, знаєте, дивне відчуття. З одного боку так, тобі приємно, з іншого боку ти розумієш, через які події ти тут опинився. Ти розумієш, що просто краще б нічого не було, нічого цього не було. Ніяких New York Times'ів, ніяких медіа і ніякої війни.
Чи культура зброї? Звісно. Про що тут говорити?
Якщо твоє мистецтво вне політики, то це не мистецтво. Це якесь ремесло, щось рутинне, щось однотипне, щось штамповане. Тобто виходить, що там відбуваються такі події, і це не відображено в твоєму мистецтві, значить ти не можеш називати себе митцем, бо це зовсім інші речі. Ця родина жила в цьому домі. Тіла все ще знаходиться під завалами, тому що через постійні обстріли в місті їх не можуть дістати. Я вважаю, що якщо ми хочемо остаточно перемогти в цій війні, ми маємо побудувати, принаймні на деякий час, принаймні на деякі, можливо, десятиріччя, на одне покоління ми маємо побудувати культурну стіну від Росії, бо інакше це зросійщування, воно лагідне зросійщування, воно постійно буде відбуватись.
Самоліт полетів.
І так, вибачте, воно буде постійно відбуватись, і треба робити щось, щоб такого не було. І наприклад, ми одесити, ми все своє життя розмовляли російською. Після подій Ірпеня і Бучі ми перейшли на українську. Це було дуже важко, але ми це зробили. І я поясню, чому. Це не стільки бажання не мати нічого спільного з Росією, хоча це і бажання не мати нічого спільного, але це більш бажання мати більше спільного з українською культурою. Різниця між українцями і росіянами фундаментальна. Вона в цінностях, вона в рівні життя, якщо хочете, вона в усьому. І це ми реально зовсім різні, абсолютно різні, з різним курсом, з різним уявленням майбутнього, і таке інше. Після перемоги, мені так здається, буде ще одне випробування, яке полягає в тому, чи зможемо ми знову об'єднатись, але вже для відбудування нашої країни, яку ми відстояли. Треба розуміти, що це щось фундаментальне, це щось, від чого буквально залежить наше життя, наше майбутнє.
І якщо все ж таки ми це зробимо, а я сподіваюся, ми це зробимо, то, знаєте, буде в нас сильна країна, де аграрії, айтішники, розвивайтесь, багатійте і все буде добре. І для того, щоб світ надалі існував так, як він існував ці роки, нам треба перемогти цього ворога, який зараз нас атакує.
Тому саме підтримка України – це кращий варіант для цього, будь-яка підтримка.
Це інвестиція у спокійне майбутнє.
As we start the discussion panel, I would like first to ask Madame Alina KRASNIANSKA, who is the executive producer of the project Culture versus War, to tell us maybe something more about the feature movie and eventually about the project itself. Madam, floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I would like to tell some words about our project, which was started in May of 2022. Actually, our director was in occupation in Kiev area, and after he survived, he wanted to talk. So all of us were inside of this situation in the beginning of full-scale invasion. And our great Ukrainian artists, they are representatives of different spheres of art, went to serve to army from first day of full-scale invasion. And they are really outstanding, talented people. And regardless on their age and health conditions, they decided to join army. And we were realizing that we have to act, to shoot the films, to document the war crimes, and to tell their stories, to share them with the world. So our intention was to share with the world the shots of Ukraine, of our heroes, of their ways, and also to show their masterpieces and to tell about them as well. So first two films we made without any financial support, just to start, just not to lose the time. And then after first films, We met Marco. Marco is manager, our project manager from European Union, and we got the support for our project, for the films, for production and distribution, for exhibitions of our authors. Konstantin and Vlada Liberov, they have the exhibition, and Serhiy Mikhalchuk, our famous Ukrainian cinematographer, who is as well very, very talented photographer. And we made an art book with these pictures and with the stories of our heroes. So we produced 7 films. We produced 6 short films. One of them you watched today. First film was about a very famous pop band from Ukraine. It's Antitila. They went to serve to army from first day of full-scale invasion, 3 of them, including the band leader. And they served as paramedics. For that, they were documenting the rescuing operations by their body cameras, as it's obligatory in the army. And we got the permission to use these materials. There were several hundred hours of materials of rescuing operations. And as well, we had a lot of other interesting stuff to tell about them, including the fact that U2 band supported them, and possibly heard about it in May of 2022. Bono and the Age came to Ukraine. It was pretty dangerous moment. They came to sing with guys in the Kyiv metro. And guys from Antitila band came from frontline just for 2 hours to sing with them. And it made pretty big influence in mass media all around the world. And Bono and the Age themselves, they promoted it. They were talking about this war, and they gave us permission to use all their songs, music videos, and we got the permission, free permission for all their products, just to support the film, to make it more visible. And it really helped. We tested it, and yeah, it works pretty well with their participation. Second film was about a very famous Ukrainian cinematographer, Serhiy Mikhalchuk, who is 4 times Oscar nominated. He started with a full-scale invasion. He started to make photographs of war crimes made by Russian army in Ukraine. He was filming it for the military tribunal in Hague, and it helped. We know that his shots are participating in big deals. And our director of photography of our project, he is doing the same. He is also a cinematographer. He is also serving in the army, and he is also taking pictures and making videos of war crimes. And as I said before, Serhiy Mikhalchuk is also participating in our exhibition, and I mean, his works are participating. And he is serving, and his pictures are as well in our art book. Our third film was about Akhtem SEITABLAEV. I know that he will be participating in our discussion today. Remotely, yes, he is also serving. He is a Crimean Tatar film director, producer, and actor. He's from Crimea originally. He was completely Russian and Tatar speaking. And he learned Ukrainian, which is encouraging a lot of people and inspiring a lot of people. On my point of view, he's speaking very beautiful language now. And from the first day of war, he joined Ukrainian army as well. Also, I want to say that in each film, besides the story of the hero, we are telling one story about key point of the war. And for example, in Serhiy Mikhalchuk's film, we are telling about occupation of Kyiv area, because he was the real he participated. He was with the army, with Ukrainian army at that moment, and he could take pictures. And in film of Akhtem SEITABLAEV, we're telling the story of Mariupol, of Azovstal, and of occupation. It was happening, actually, we were making the film at that moment. So everything is very alive there. We are talking about captivity. We are telling about our soldiers in Russian captivity. And actually the film was finished in summer of 2022. But then at one point, one of our heroes, also Crimean Tatar, who was in a captivity, he was released, and we added one shot for the final. We shot him. We shot their meeting with Akhtem, because it was very, very, very important and sensitive moment. If any of you will be interested to see this film, you will understand why so important was to see their reunion. Our third film is about Kobzar. Is a guardian and keeper of Ukrainian traditions and Ukrainian culture, history. Very interesting person. Taras Kompanechenko. He is a musician. He's playing a lot of folk instruments, and in the same time, he is very, very extremely interesting and modern person. He has 4 kids, as a lot of our heroes in the films, they have 3 or 4 kids, and it didn't stop them to go to defend the country. Then fourth film is about very famous Ukrainian poet and writer and translator and musician SHERIDAN. I am sure a lot of you heard about him. He was Nobel Prize nominee of 2022. He is not serving, but he is military volunteer. He helps a lot to army, and as well he is participating in different events, debates, in different different occasions, and gives a lot of interviews to support Ukraine, to talk about it. He made world tours to talk about Ukraine. And fortunately, we are very happy for that. He started to write again, because when we were filming him, it was like 7 months after the full-scale invasion started. He didn't write any single line of poetry or prose, because he was so much like out of it. And around 1 year ago, he started to write again, and we are very happy. I was talking to him about it on one of the events for foreign journalists. So now he can promote the situation by his poetry. And the heroes you saw today, Kostya and Vlada Liberov, they are almost all the time on the front line. Recently, Vlada was wounded. She had big problem with health. She made a pause of 2 weeks, I think, not going to the front line. Kostya went, and she left in the hospital in Kyiv. I mean, first week she was there, they couldn't transport her. Then she came to Kyiv, and after that she came back, and now they are on the front line. And they couldn't remove this piece of how it's called? Shrapnel, yeah. They couldn't remove from her body, so she's a little bit a metal woman now. And it didn't scare her, so she went back, because their mission is big enough, and possibly you heard about them, because they are published by a lot of huge international mass medias from the beginning of the war till now, as Associated Press, BBC, CNN, and like a lot of others. Our project is about Ukrainian creators who are real representatives of Ukrainian nation, even not all of them are Ukrainians by origin. Some of them learned the language, some of them didn't have Ukrainian passports. But they decided to defend Ukraine, they made their choice, and for us it's very, very valuable. And we understand that them participating in this war make all people way more encouraged, inspired, and people want to support, to serve, to follow, because all of us want to be free. We are willing for freedom for our kids, Ukrainian kids. We are looking for our Ukrainian identification. And as you know, for generations, we couldn't be a state. And the spine of our nation was culture, language, and traditions. So that was what was holding us, what was holding our Ukrainian identification, and that what helped us to save our traditions and to be Ukrainians now. I want to say that on our point of view, all democratic countries have to support us, seeing how open and honest is our movement, and not becoming tired of our war, as our best people are fighting for our independence, for the democracy, for us, for all of us, not only for Ukrainians. And coming to the end, I want to dedicate, sorry for being too emotional, because when we started, I got the news that one of our friends and our colleague from this project, very, very talented person, died on the front line. So that's why it's a bit hard to talk. And I want to dedicate this speech and all positive consequences of our project to him, to Alexei, and to other Ukrainian talented, our colleagues, artists who died and who is still dying at this moment at war for our common freedom. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Now I would like to give the floor to Professor Jerome Sheridan, a historian, professor of international relations, director of the Brussels Center of the American University. Professor, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I'd like to begin by saying it is quite the honor to be surrounded by so many creative geniuses that are making an impact on the world. So I'm very pleased to be here with you this afternoon. I am going to speak as a historian with a deep understanding of the two world wars, a historian with a deep understanding of the Belgian resistance in those two world wars. And I would like to address the issue of culture from the perspective of resistance and collaboration. Let me quickly begin with what I mean by the term culture. Culture is a very broad term. It includes the things that my fellow panelists are speaking about today, film, the arts, but it's also our mental programming. It's the way we look at the world. It's the way we use our language. It's the values we share. It's everything about us. And in that lens, resistance and collaboration fit in. Let's start with resistance. What do we mean by resistance? Resistance ultimately is a choice. It's a choice to defend one's country, one's values, one's family. It's a choice to try to restore freedom that's been taken away. It's a choice of identity, of what kind of a people do we want to be. It's a choice about the type of civilization someone wants to live in. And it's the choice about the future of our children. At the end of the day, resistance is about hope, hope for the future. Resistance takes many forms. In World War I, World War II, thousands of Belgians died in the resistance fighting against the Nazi oppression among them. It goes without saying that tens of thousands of Ukrainians today are fighting and dying for the freedom of their families, for the freedom of their country, and are not asking anything in return except that the world recognize them and that the world supports them. But resistance goes beyond active combat. Resistance goes through every aspect of our everyday life. In Belgium during the wars, young men starting at the age of 18 were required to engage in labor service for the occupiers. Tens of thousands of them simply disappeared rather than provide that service. Belgian families housed at great personal risk to themselves fugitives from the Nazis in their homes. Belgians listened to the radio. They spread the truth of the news out there in the world to keep their spirits of their fellow compatriots up. Belgians engaged in very subtle acts of sabotage in addition to what the resistance was doing. Sabotage such as simply not showing up for the work in the morning when it was important for the war effort, or diverting a train to a different location under the pretext that you had made a mistake. It also involves things like, collecting information about the enemy and getting that information to the people that needs it. And resistance is especially about art. During the war, paint was in shortage, but this did not stop Belgian artists from engaging in graffiti and art in public spaces, using the objects that they found as pieces of sculpture, writing essays, writing poems, distributing these things to the clandestine networks, singing subversive songs in ways that the occupiers had no idea what was being sung, pretending to be singing about Belgium when in fact they were making fun of Adolf Hitler, not Leopold II. Even under occupation, architecture remained an important national symbol. Every day on the 11th of November during the occupation, Belgians visited the Congress column in downtown Brussels to remember the First World War and to remember the sacrifices it had made. They did not make a public display, they could not, but they visited, sending that signal. It comes down to silly things like food and drink. It was forbidden to display the Belgian flag during the war, but grocers would arrange their vegetables in their shop windows, black vegetables together, yellow vegetables together, red vegetables together, in the shape of the Belgian flag. It had to do with fashion. I had the honor of knowing many people who were involved in the Belgian resistance. And one young lady told me a story that every day she liked to, especially on Sundays when she knew the Germans would be walking around, to dress up in her Sunday finest, to do her hair despite the fact that there was no shampoo or soap or things of this nature, to use what little nail polish she could find or invent, and to go out and walk in front of the Germans proudly, head straight ahead, proving that she was not afraid of them, proving she was not afraid of what they were doing to their country. Even carefully veiled jokes were a form of resistance that people did during the war. In whatever form resistance takes, each act of resistance prevents the enemy from achieving the enemy's goals. It weakens the enemy, and it paves the way for eventual victory over the enemy. That's resistance. What is collaboration? Collaboration is also a choice. It's a choice to be subservient. It's a choice to surrender one's political freedom in exchange for alleged security. It's a choice to suspend one's beliefs. It is a choice to see what is in front of one's very eyes. It is a choice to ignore one's values. It is a choice to suppress everything that one holds dear. It is a choice to not think about the broader consequences of one's actions. At the end of the day, what collaboration is indifference, not caring about what is happening to your country, not caring about what is happening to your family or the people around you. And collaboration, too, takes many forms. It takes the form of people who ideologically believe in the message of the enemy and actively support the enemy's efforts or enforce their laws in an occupied country. It takes the form of remaining silent about what the enemy is actually doing in your country. It takes the form of deliberate ignorance, turning one's attention away from everything that one sees around oneself. It means doing business as usual, continuing in the everyday acts of life, keeping the economy alive, and therefore indirectly supporting the enemy. This resistance fighter that I talked about before once told me a story about a collaborator, a soft collaborator, she called him. She was not worried about being turned in, but it was somebody that did a great deal for the Nazis during the war. And she confronted him at one point and said, how can you do this? How can you do this to your people? How can you support the Nazis' war effort? And he looked at her in the eye and said, my religion is my wallet. That is the essence of collaboration, not caring, indifference. Right? Now, between resistance and collaboration, there is no middle ground. Doing nothing is collaboration. It's the acceptance of the status quo. It's the acceptance of the enemy's goals in a war. Each and every act of collaboration brings an enemy closer to the enemy's goals. And let me conclude by saying a few words about the European Union and NATO in this broad context of collaboration and resistance. It's easy for us in the European Union, it's easy for us in NATO, especially if you live in a place like Belgium or in the middle of Iowa, to look at events in Ukraine as being very, very far away, involving peoples we know nothing about, activities that don't affect us. But, that overlooks a fundamental fact. It overlooks our own culpability in what is happening during the war. Every single Ukrainian soldier that is buried today is dead in part due to our folly. We didn't listen in the early 2000s when the warning signs were there. We didn't pay attention in 2008. We didn't pay attention in 2014. And what does that mean for today? Today, we in the European Union and NATO, both as organizations, as countries, and as peoples, still face that choice between resistance and collaboration. We could employ our strength, we can employ our resources, we can employ our conscience, we can employ our culture, we can employ our art to defend freedom and human dignity and continue to support the Ukrainians in their noble cause. Or, as unfortunately some politicians out there are advocating, we can, both as nations and individuals, turn a blind eye to what is happening, pretend that the threat can be eliminated through appeasement, pretend that the threat is simply going to go away. None of that is true. For if we choose this latter course of action, we will default to the forces that will breed new wars in the future. What the artists who we're talking about today all remind us of is that freedom, when threatened anywhere, is freedom threatened everywhere. And let their message come back to those people who doubt that fact. On that, thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Professor. Yes, many reflections on this. Actually, we are an international society, and I think that even contemporary history gives us many aspects of the situation, thinking about this. I would like to ask the remote connection with Akhtem SEITABLAEV, if possible. He was already introduced by Mrs. Alina KRASNIANSKA, the Ukrainian actor, screenwriter, filmmaker, and of Crimean Tatar origin, of course, that is important. Akhtem, welcome.
Thank you very much. Я вітаю всіх,
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for inviting me to this extremely important event. First of all, I'd like to thank our European partners for your help to Ukraine, not only with weapons and political support to fight the aggressor, striving to destroy peace in the world. Connection lost, we are afraid.
We wait just few moments. If no connection, will screen the pre-recorded message from Akhtem SEITABLAEV we have already.
Я сподіваюсь, мене чутно.
Can you hear me now?
Чутно зараз?
Can you hear me now?
Can we try once more to connect? From our side, technically, everything is okay. You are muted.
У нас все включено.
It's all on. Maybe it's all on. It should be working.
Чутно мене?
Can you hear me now? Yes.
Да.
I wanted to say thank you very much for the support, for this invitation, for the colossal help that's been provided to us by our partners from Europe and around the world. And I'm thankful for your caring for this very important issue, very important element, which is culture. I'm completely convinced that culture is the strong foundation from which a person springs and grows up and understands the values of the world and then grows into a human being or into one of those armed persons who believe it is possible to come to somebody else's land, to kill people and commit crimes. And I wanted to thank you for support for the Crimean Tatars, who are having a very difficult time in the temporarily occupied Crimea, because it is the last 200 years that my people have been threatened with total annihilation, and our enemy, our common enemy, knows this very well. He knows when he destroys a culture, he destroys a nation, he destroys the people, he destroys the values. And I'm extremely pleased, and I hope so as much as the distinguished Madam Chair, and I'm grateful to the Professor Sheridan. If we see a crime and we keep silent, whether we want it or not, we become co-criminals. And I know how empathetic and how sustainable, how stable is the idea of our European friends, of how important democracy is for the development of humankind. Democracy where anyone, every person and every individual respects the dignity and the rights and the pursuit of freedom of another person. And this is why it is so important for Crimean Tatars, especially now when Crimea is occupied, and perhaps the only tool, the only mechanism to preserve our identity, to hand over our knowledge to our children, our knowledge about our shared motherland, Ukraine, that we hand over this knowledge through culture, through fairy tales, through films. And the feedback I'm receiving every day when I speak to my relatives, to my friends who are currently in the occupied Crimea, and this only confirms this conviction. And on my own behalf, on behalf of my brothers in arms, sisters in arms in the armed forces, we are prepared to use any opportunity, any means possible to help and to fill the information space of European countries and the world with the truth of what is happening in Ukraine. We are prepared, we're ready for any kind of cooperation, we're prepared to work together in any way, because Ukraine, for many years, for many centuries, Ukraine has been a European country in the context that the people who are being born in this country value fundamental concepts such as freedom, development, education, dignity, and a freedom to create our own agenda in our own home, the way they believe it should be. And I would like to say a special thank you to this very beautiful and very warm country, Belgium, for the welcome and for the protection that my granddaughter and my daughter have found here. She found her family happiness, her personal happiness in Belgium. Ukraine will not lose. Come what may, Ukraine will not lose, but Ukraine will win, because the wheel of history is moving towards freedom and democracy. It cannot be stopped. But we will need your help on this path, including in the context of culture. It is my privilege to be talking to you. Thank you. Glory to Ukraine, and glory to all free people.
Thank you very much indeed. Whenever we speak, and we speak constantly about Ukraine here, and we act to help Ukraine resisting the war of aggression, we always include Crimea in our deliberations. Territorial integrity of the country means with Crimea. That's obvious for all of us. Now I would like to give the floor to a very special guest, also from my point of view, young Ukrainian artist whom I met first time here in the parliament during the exhibition I was able to host, featuring art of three nations, Ukrainians, Georgians and Belarusians, in 10th anniversary of Russian war, also war of aggression on Georgia, although time was different and many of Western politicians used to be collaborators, professor, simply denying this aggression. I would like here to pay tribute to then my president, Lech Kaczyński, who was one of the few to speak loudly and defend Georgia. There were few very courageous and brave politicians, including Lithuanian President Valdas Adamkus, also Ukrainian President Yushchenko, who participated in Tbilisi in defense of then Georgian territory. But the world until now is not able to agree that it was simply a series of Russian projects to invade neighbors, not simply trying to offend the bear by Georgian politicians. We have to be true to our beliefs, therefore. I would like to give the floor to Inga Levi. Sorry for this longer speech.
Thank you for warm words towards me. I'm very pleased and Так? Oh, yeah, that's better. Thank you for your warm words and thank you for giving me a possibility to speak out here. First, I will introduce myself and what I'm doing, at least from the beginning, from the full-scale war. I'm Inga Levi, artist from Kiev, and since February 26th of February, I run my double exposure series, which you can see on the screens now. In these daily small drawings, I depict an overlap of two accounts. The scenes I witnessed while staying in relatively safe places and news reports about the war in Ukraine from the media. Well, about the culture as a mean of struggle, my intention to start to draw, despite temporary sharp despondency in artistic activity in these first days, was to act doing the only thing I'm capable of and to preserve my own agency. That was important, and not to become a voiceless casualty overcome by terror. Now I still proceed this series, and I am quite conscious that now we all have to be patient, and I don't know also how much time I must proceed this series because, like, I started it and I'm supposed to proceed it to the end of the war. I didn't think that it will last so long. And now I'm finishing my master's degree in Art Academy in Gdańsk, Poland. And I still not fully present there in this peaceful reality, thinking about my native places and thinking about what is going on in Ukraine. So this overlap is still present. And today I'd like to speak of people from culture sphere also, which are also featured in my series often. Here, what you can see on the screens, it's kind of what I have chosen with those people. Those who had to put away their lives because of Russian invasion, put away their artistic tools and take weapons and go fighting against the aggressor. I'd like to tell something about a few of them. And one thing I wanted to note that like pro-Russian oriented persons often claim that Ukrainian culture doesn't have so many big writers and artists, but maybe it has to do with the fact that Russia killed, or if not appropriated, almost every generation of them. And here it happens again. Recently, on 7th of January, a really powerful young poet and machine gunner, Maxim Dali Krivtsov, was killed at the front line. Russians targeted the dugout where he was together with my old friend, who fortunately survived. It happened just the day before they both should have gone for a long-deserved recovery break. And Dali's death felt like a huge loss to the culture as well. I have his book published just less than a month before his death. He was very happy about it. Although I met him only once, but I also felt it's like a terrible, huge loss. Also, one of those who had to put away their artistic practice was my friend Dmitro Kupriyan, whom you also can sometimes see on the screen. Photo documentary artist, he had to become the commander of the assault platoon and twice got his helmet pierced by a bullet. But fortunately stayed alive, and now he's transferred to be a press officer of the same brigade because of health issues due to his service in an assault platoon. And for example, a photographer, and about how different people begin to operate, come into war. For example, a photographer from Chernihiv, my friend Roman Zakrevsky, became a military correspondent. And as he got to war, he started writing almost confessional and piercing texts about war and himself in it, very private experiences, I guess valuing every day in a different way. Another of my colleagues serving in Rubizh Brigade, Sasha Leny. Every time he comes to Kiev for a rest or to recover after an injury, he initiates an auction to fundraise for the military needs of his battalion. He creates the exhibition, makes a statement, gathers artists who are willing to give away their works. And this is about how artistic community operates in Ukraine now. Art in Ukraine seems to have two goals left: to voice and reflect war reality and to be given away and converted, if it's something material, in fact, converted into weapons, medicine, anything for the army. At least I'm talking about the community I see around myself. I wasn't able to become a volunteer, but at least I also make such auctions on my Instagram, giving away my artistic works. I decided that my old pre-full-scale war, let's say so, art, with all its lyrics, all these sunny Crimean views from 2013, now make sense only if they are converted into a drone, thermal imager, or a small contribution for a sniper rifle to donate to the theologian who helps Ukrainian snipers. I'm speaking about how war changed what people are involved in spite of their occupation, normal occupation. Well, I never imagined my world could change so much, but it did because of Russian invasion. In a way, I became fearless. I am almost not afraid to speak here in the European Parliament before all of you, because I have a greater fear, the fear of the defeat of Ukraine. Me and I guess all Ukrainian artistic community, which I have an honor to represent here in a way, are very grateful to to you and all people in the European Parliament making important decisions to help the victory of Ukraine happen. Thank you very much.
Our time, unfortunately, starts to be very limited, but we have one important speaker still left, Madame Yona TUKUSER, the Ukrainian-Bulgarian artist, who quite recently, in January 2024, opened her exhibition here in the European Parliament under title Hunger. It was hosted by our Bulgarian friend Andrei Kosachev, and it was really great success. Yona TUKUSER.
Thank you. The first, I want to say thank you for inviting me. I prefer to speak Ukrainian. It's my first time, my first speech, and I'm little.
No problem.
If it's possible to show my little video message from Ukraine, from my model in my paintings that I paint last year in Ukraine. Please.
1946, 1947. My mother was telling me, hunger. She has nothing to eat. The woman, she kills the child so that she can survive. So she doesn't die. Kills her child and eats it. I'm telling you the truth. This is what my mother told me. She said, Grisho, hunger and cold are the worst. That's what my mother told me. As Putin hits its war, he will start hitting stores, factories. The same thing will happen. He will hit the power stations. There won't be electricity, right? Putin hits. 1945 was a war. 1946, 1947, people have nothing to eat. So my mother used to say, I have known this for a long time. I was still a child, and she said, Grisho, the hunger and the cold are the most dangerous. And I remember that.
46, there was hunger here.
God save us. And now hunger will start.
Do you know that here in Reni, Odessa, Izmail, the grain, the Russians blow up with rockets?
I know. You know? I know.
Look, this is a burnt grain.
Burnt grain, yes.
Russians now burning the grain with rockets.
To destroy us, so that we have nothing to eat, we to die.
Why Russians now hitting grain with rockets?
To destroy us, to destroy us. Putin wants to destroy us. Here is the thing.
Today I wanted to tell you about the importance of stories told. I've asked Grisha what to tell people, and he told me, I told you the truth. Just tell them my truth. Grisha's story is the voice of millions whose lives have been affected by the Holodomor of the 20th century and the current war in Ukraine. Our world is full of devastating pain and suffering caused by war, aggression, and oppression. Grisha, with the wisdom born of his suffering and by the power of simple statement, reminds us that speaking the truth is a matter of courage and necessity. It is in the following words of Isaac Newton that we find the key to understanding. Truth is always to be found in simplicity, not in the complicity and confusion of things. That's the key to understanding. Aggression and war feed on dark motives, on fear and ignorance. These lead to confusion and generate chaos from which neither the individual nor society can find a way out or any constructive solutions. But I believe that the light of the truth has the power to dispel the fog and make the path clear. Let us strive for a future that arises from the truth through empathy. Aggression is weakness, not strength. Legitimate strength is truth. My biggest childhood fear was war. I believed that this was the greatest evil of all, and that there was nothing more terrible than war. But later, I discovered that there is something more evil. In 2018, while collecting testimonies from survivors of the Third Famine of 1946 to 1947 in Ukraine, I asked an old woman, which is worse, a famine or a war? This woman had experienced the Second World War and the hunger after it. Her assessment was the most realistic. Her answer made my blood curdle. Famine is more terrifying than war. I was shocked that death by starvation is more terrible than death in a war. Just tell them my truth. In the current war against Ukraine, crimes continue, including Russia's use of hunger as a weapon. This fact reminds me of the unpunished crimes of the Soviet government of the past. And now we are witnessing a repeat of Moscow's historical genocidal policy against the population of Ukraine, and this found expression in one of my latest paintings dedicated to contemporary hunger during wartime. This painting is titled with a quote from a conversation. A child told me I was so hungry that I ate my friend's toy. This is the story of a 6-year-old Ilya Kostusevich, who survived the horrors of the war-locked city of Mariupol in March 2022. His parents had been killed, and Ilya spent 3 weeks without any food in a bomb shelter, where he was forced to eat a toy that belonged to his friend to not starve. This was shared with me by Ilya's foster mother, Maria, age 22, who adopted Ilya with her husband. Maria shares, Ilya said, "My parents died. How am I going to be on this earth alone?" I explained to him this is a war, a brutal war, and sometimes this happens, unfortunately. And I told him, but you're not alone anymore. We have taken you, and we will look after you. We will love you. We will be your family, but only if you want us to. We can be your mom and your dad, because your mom and dad are in heaven now, and they're looking at you. They're happy for you. And he said, okay. And he gave his permission to be his mom and dad. The fact that Ilya was left alone without his parents in the dark in a basement for 3 weeks, without food, unfolds in the context of the impunity of the Soviet regime, which was not punished for the mass murders committed through starvation. This prompted me to send a letter with a photo of the painting to the chief prosecutor of the ICC in The Hague, accompanied by a request that we consider the story of Ilya from Mariupol in the investigation of war crimes committed by Russia against Ukraine, when people are forced to live in inhumane conditions to survive. Taking away the right to access food is genocide. So, I am just telling an artist's truth. Before I started painting, I studied in detail every story that I recreate in paintings. I also study the psychological, physiological, and social consequences of hunger. Through painting, I strive to convey the inner feelings of the person who is starving, emphasizing not so much the realistic shape, but the human feelings and inner essence of the individual who is starving. In an effort to be authentic in conveying the mental and physiological changes in the starving human being, I decided to conduct an experiment involving myself by undergoing prolonged starvation. This experience broadened my understanding of the sensation of those who are starving and contributed to a deeper knowledge of the deforming of the inner self. This new knowledge leads me to a better understanding of the psychological aspects of the issue, which I weave into my painting, creating a more empathetic and more powerful messages. To support the results obtained from internal self-observation of mental changes due to prolonged hunger, I refer to the scientific work by Peterim Sorokin, Hunger is a Factor, the Influence of Famine on Human Behavior, Social Organization, and Public Life. According to this researcher, hunger causes deformation in various areas of the human psyche, including in the area of general self-awareness and sensory emotional experiences, sensations, and perceptions. It is particularly important that hunger leads to deformation of memory due to changes in sensations, perceptions, and ideas. The author explains that during starvation, when one is close to death, delirium occurs, a complete disorder of consciousness and a disintegration of the personality. Deprivation of food can lead to a specific form of mental disorder called exhaustion delirium. In the painting, I was so hungry that I ate my friend's toy. I depict the deformed image of Ilya swallowing a teddy bear, parts of a teddy bear, presenting hunger as a factor that deforms his psyche and possibly causes hunger delirium. The painting is an interpretation of Ilya's story, trying to recreate his mental experiences and question whether what he tells is the result of a hungry delirium or is it a true account. In either case, this story serves as evidence of genocide. And I am just telling you the scientific truth. While creating the Hunger Project, I used the scientific artistic method of cognition. Since 2009, I have been conducting an independent historical investigation aimed at uncovering the truth about the deliberate actions of the Soviet government in Ukraine in the 20th century, which caused the death of millions of people due to artificial famine and even led to cases of cannibalism. I researched documents from Ukrainian state archives about the artificial famines between 1921 and 22, 1932 and 33, and 1946 to 1947, as well as conduct interviews with survivors. I recreate the acquired knowledge about famine through art in the form of paintings, attempting to keep the memory of the famine victims alive. From the hazy, abstract image of the statistics that covers millions who died of starvation, I try to extract one tragic personal story of a single individual. My approach is to show the faces of the victims by expressing their personal perception, which brings human fate back to the center of public attention. The name of each painting is a name from a document I found in the government archive or a quote from a surviving witness captured by me on camera. In order to personally feel the tragedy of my compatriots, I met and recorded my conversations with more than 80 elderly people in Ukraine who became victims of artificial famine after the Second World War. An old woman said to me, "I wish to you young people to never experience such a thing, but not to simply never experience, but also never see it, never even hear about it." I didn't heed her warning, and I told her simply the truth.
Щоб історія того, що сталося, була забута.
Forgotten. The pain still lies inside them, so it is so strong that one refuses to talk about it. Some witnesses, while recounting their memories, cried as if it happened recently.
But in addition to speaking with the victims of the famine, I also talked to the executioners. I happened to meet an elderly man who, during our conversation in front of the camera, revealed to me that he was one of the grain collectors, part of the armed squads that forcibly took food supplies from people. He bluntly told me I was a grain collector, one of those bandits who went from house to house robbing people of grain. This man took away the food from the people and then went around the village with his car to collect the corpses of those who died of starvation. And this same man, towards the end of his life, began writing letters to various government institutions asking them to recognize the 1946-47 famine as a genocide committed by the Stalinist communist regime, as well as the 1932-33 famine genocide. The grain collector admits his guilt of participation in the genocide against his countrymen. Why not accept his repentance? How can there still be doubts and disputes about whether the Holodomor is genocide when the perpetrator himself clearly admits his guilt and declares it to be genocide? The grain collector shared his truth. I have a document. In 2007, the village council of Golitsa concluded that the causes of the 1946-47 famine cannot be determined, and therefore they do not recognize it as genocide. I tell them that more evidence Do you want more? I myself.
To finish in just a few minutes, so please but slowly come to conclusions.
Під час голоду радянська влада насильно відбирала зерно українського.
And indeed, we can see that now the famine can continue. So I created a Heran installation, and we can see that the history repeats itself. We can see that the family is used as a tool by Stalin, by Putin. Nowadays, we can see the fourth genocide against the Ukrainian nation. And we want the simple truth. I'm very sorry, but my website will feature the whole speech that I prepared. If you have a little bit of interest, of course, you can consult it. I've prepared 3 more pages because I've been working for 15 years and collecting all this evidence, and I would like to share it. I'm very thankful and grateful to you for giving me this possibility to share my researches with you. Thank you so much, kindly.
Thank you so much. Certainly we'll publish this website that we may collect full speech. I'm very sorry to come to the end of this meeting. Allow me just eventually in conclusion one remark. I feel that it was not enough space for us to talk about culture as a mean of aggression, because that is certainly a topic. And we know what kind of tools there are to use. All of us, certainly all of us of the region of Central and Eastern Europe are well aware what tools, and in particular what cultural tools are to introduce in order to resist the aggression. But to assess the real influence of culture as a tool, or as a mean of aggression, is extremely difficult. Actually, in my personal case, being an admirer of culture, high culture, in particular literature, it took really many years to understand that one of my favorite writers, Lermontov, actually depicted time that I consider now as genocidal in Caucasus. And therefore we have to be well aware about both history and culture introduced by country, nation, that all the time used to serve as either imperial power or neo-imperial power, and also using culture as a mean to pursue this vicious goal against many of us. I'm sorry I was not able to give the floor to my colleagues, MEPs. I have to conclude this meeting. Thank you very much indeed. I would like to thank all distinguished speakers. I would like to thank Ambassador for his presence and very valuable contribution. And please join me in applauding our distinguished speakers. Thank you.